Hello, my name is Robert M. Ross. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Pennsylvania, and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel, which I'm calling the Common Sense Lifestyle. Why the Common Sense Lifestyle? Well, I like to take some simple psychological concepts or just things I've picked up over my career and try to put them just into common sense terms that people can use to improve their everyday lives. So, before we get rolling with today's topic, I have to give my usual disclaimer. This is not a therapy session. I am not your therapist. Nothing in any of my videos can be said to be mental health treatment. It is not meant to diagnose, treat, or cure any kind of condition. If you do need a therapist, I would encourage you to call your insurance company. They will be able to connect you with someone in your area. I would also encourage you, if you can't find anyone that way, consult with Psychology Today. They have a find a therapist function that is very useful. So definitely take a look at that if you do need treatment for yourself. Don't go without mental health treatment. It is pretty important. But for today's topic is a catchphrase, and I tend to like to use catchphrases in therapy. They're just easy ways to deliver a simple message, and they're easy to remember, and they just kind of stick in your head. So today's catchphrase is, life is crazy enough, don't invite more in. So basically, life is filled with things that are beyond our control. For example, you can exercise and eat right and do all the right things, and you can still get cancer. That's beyond your control. You can still do many things in completely the right way and have a bad outcome. You could lose your job because a government regulation changed, or there was a change in a law that made what your company does illegal, or ships everything overseas, or your company could be subject to a buyout and then you're outsourced. Those things happen completely out of your control. Things can happen to friends and family. A family member can die unexpectedly. Their house could burn down. Your house could burn down. All kinds of things can happen that are completely beyond control of your life. And there's a million of them. But that's just, some unfortunately common ones. Now, while we can't control those things, there are a lot of things in our life that we can control. We can control our friends. Who are our friends? Do we have good friends? Do we have friends that are not so hot? We control that. We control who we associate with. Maybe we have acquaintances that aren't so great for us. We can deal with where we go, where we put ourselves. We, in many cases, can control where we work. We always have the option of quitting, moving to a different company, moving to a different job, starting our own business, which is what I chose to do. You always have that choice to do. If you're unhappy in a job, you don't like the way it's going, you don't like making money for someone else, well, go make money for yourself if you can. Definitely not for everyone, but if you can do it, I would encourage it. What we do for ourselves, we can choose whether to exercise, we can choose whether to eat right, we can choose whether to take care of ourselves, we can choose to fill our free time with hobbies that enrich our lives. Those are all things we have control over. And most importantly, we can control who we date. And who we date, who we have romantic relationships or marriages with, is vitally, vitally, vitally important. Can't stress this enough because it's huge. And remember, there is no guarantee that you're going to have this carefree, placid life. There are people out there that think that if I just work to this certain age, then everything's going to be fine and everything's going to be stable and everything's going to be peaceful and quiet. That time doesn't come. Life is always stressful. Those things that we can't control are always out there. So always keep that in mind. We're never guaranteed a peaceful, calm life. Good relationships, getting back to the relationship thing. Good relationships can be a life enhancer, and bad ones can be like a living nightmare that we can't get out of. And if we don't screen the people that we let into our lives, we let crazy into the doors of our castle. We let them right past the gates. There are a ton of examples that I've had over the last few years in my office of men who let crazy into the gates of their castle, and they were surprised when crazy reared its ugly head. And here's some examples, and I'm not revealing anyone's identity, and I've mismatched the details. I'm not violating any kind of laws or anything here. But here's some examples. A man marries a woman who cheats. He knows she cheats, and in fact, in some cases, the woman cheated with on another guy with him. And he wifes her up, and maybe they end up having kids or something like that, and he's surprised when she cheats on him. And I'm kind of sitting there thinking, I don't say this, but I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, why weren't you surprised? That's what she does. The red flags were there, you chose to ignore them. Man marries a woman with a crazy family history. She was not raised in good ways. She was maybe raised to do exactly what I'm about to describe, or she was taught to do this. And woman files a false PFA claim against him, and he can't go back to his own home. And PFA, sometimes the hearing takes a long time, or sometimes they're continued for a while. And it could take a month or two for you to get back into your home, because if there's a PFA and she's living with you, guess what? You can't go back home. All your stuff is still there, but she's there and you can't go back to get your stuff. And guess what? I have had cases where the guy finally gets the PFA thrown out because there were no grounds for it, but by the time he gets home, everything that he's ever accumulated or owned is gone because she and her family sold it. This has happened, and this has happened on multiple occasions. This is definitely a thing. Now, obviously not every woman does this, but enough of it happens that I've seen it multiple times. A man lets his friends move in, and maybe these aren't the best people. Maybe they're involved in drugs. Maybe they're involved in other unethical behaviors, and they become a mooch, and they just kind of take advantage of the guy. And all they do is take, and they never give, and the guy just feels obligated to keep them because where are they going to go? He's trapped at that point, or at least he perceives himself to be trapped at that point. Man marries a woman with a history of terrible financial decisions. Maybe she's had multiple bankruptcies. Maybe she has credit card companies calling her all the time or bill collectors calling her all the time. But he marries and he wifes her up, and he's surprised when he's bankrupt one day because of this. I don't get it why, so guys are surprised when you marry someone who spends money faster than she can make it. She will spend money faster than you can make it. So keep that in mind. I've had cases where a guy will marry a single mom, and it seems great at first, but as time wears on, he starts to feel neglected, and it's all about the single mom, and it's all about her kids that aren't his. And he feels like he's just an ATM, and he's being ignored and neglected, and he's just there as a utility. And there are times that they are there as a utility. So that's something you need to take into consideration. A guy connects with people with a drug history, and they're surprised when they take advantage of him and steal from him. I've known guys that have lost their entire fortune. They've lost their retirement, they've lost their pension, they've lost their retirement property. Folks that have had classic cars or boats or different things lost it all because they've either had romantic relationship with drug users or friendship with drug users. And, drug users do what drug users do. They do whatever's necessary to get more drugs. And if you're a person with resources, they will come back again and again and again and take and take and take until there's nothing left, and then move on to the next sap. So, keep that in mind. You can't wife these people up. It's not a good idea. And, note that the word surprise comes up because these guys are, and I don't, it's kind of hard to understand. These guys are legitimately surprised when these things happen, and they were completely predictable because they tell their own story, and all the red flags are right there. They're right apparent, but they wanted what they wanted. They saw what they wanted to see rather than what was. They ignored the red flags, and they let crazy into their lives, and crazy wreaked havoc and then left them with nothing sometimes. Remember one of my abuse videos where I was discussing female abusers. I used the catchphrase, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And yes, there are exceptions. If something really huge happens in someone's life, it can change them, or it can make them want to change. And certainly people are capable of changing. But if nothing comes along to change them or encourage them to change themselves, they're going to continue to do what they've always done. There's a reason why we have sayings like liars lie and cheaters cheat, because that's what they do. But again, men have this tendency, they'll overlook a sea of red flags to get what they quote unquote want, and they invite more crazy in. There's no reason to invite more crazy into your life. It's flirting with disaster. So, how do we look at things differently? Well, key thing is you have to look at your life as if it is yours. It belongs to you. My life is mine. It belongs to me. I guide it. I direct it. I'm in control of it as much as I can be. Of course, like I said, there's other things beyond that we can't control. But in as much control as I have, I will guide my own life. And I'm going to protect that. My home, I own a home. It's my castle. My sweat and my effort went into purchasing and maintaining and doing everything that's going on with this home. It's worth protecting from crazy. I'm not going to have a crazy person come and live here and put this in jeopardy because I've spent so much time and effort to build this. I didn't build the house, I bought it, I've fixed it up, that kind of thing. My assets, your assets, they're the results of years of your hard work. They aren't to be shared or just given to just anyone. If you choose to share your assets, and not saying you shouldn't or you should, that's your decision to make. But if you choose to share them, you should share them with the right person, not just anyone. Don't waste them. Don't waste them on someone who's unworthy of them. I can't tell you how many cases I've read about, and some of them are high profile. I've read about situations, I've heard about situations where guy gets with a woman with a ton of debt, usually student loan debt, and a day or two after he pays off the student loans, she leaves him. It happens more than you would think. Again, some guys allow themselves to be used as a utility. If you think that you're a person of worth, and I don't mean you think you're the best thing since sliced bread, I don't mean you think you're better than everyone, you're not some elitist snob, I'm not saying that. But if you just think you're a person that's worthy of human respect, if you think you're just worthy of being called a human being, you're going to expect more from the people around you. And that's vitally important. You really have to expect at least people to be on your level. It's again that old video, future behavior, past behavior. Always look at that. Another way to kind of conceptualize this, there's an old advertising tagline, and I think it was probably, it's an old tagline from decades ago, but it's for the discriminating buyer. And what that means is not racism. It doesn't mean you're a Klan member or something like that. It doesn't mean you discriminate on people based on race or something like that. It means you want the best. A discriminating buyer would buy the best car. They would buy the best shirt. They would buy the best furniture, the best appliances. They only wanted the best. And I advise people to be the discriminating buyer in their relationships. Here's some examples. If you're a discriminating buyer, let's say you're looking for a car, you're going to ask yourself the question, what do I need this car for? Do I need to haul things around? Do I just need basic transportation? Am I a really tall guy and I need a bigger car just to fit in? What kind of things are you looking for in terms of a vehicle? You have to answer that question. You can buy a two-door sports car, but if you have a family of four, that's probably not going to be terribly practical for you. You're going to go into comparing makes and models. You're going to look at things like quality and reliability. If you're going to make a big investment in something, you're probably going to want to make sure that the car you buy has a good record. There's not a whole lot of recalls on it. They don't blow up when they get hit, things like that. You're going to be concerned about performance. You probably want your car or vehicle to be able to at least get out of its own way. But you're depending on what you want. You may want a 400 horsepower car. If that's what you want, go for it. You may just want something to get to point A to point B, and you want to do it as cheaply as possible. So you're going to get a little compact car. Who knows? It's really up to you. But you're going to comparison shop. You're going to look at the different models and see what you want. It's going to be a question of economy versus function. I bought an all-wheel drive car because winters in Northeast PA get kind of brutal. I didn't necessarily need an SUV, so I got a car with all-wheel drive. Did I pay a penalty in terms of economy? Yes, I did, but not as much of a penalty as if I would have bought an SUV. So I balanced. I was a discriminating buyer. I looked for very carefully. It took me several months to find the car that I eventually bought. It wasn't something that I just walked onto the lot and just walked home with something that day. It was a long, deliberate process. People do the same thing with computers. I know a lot of guys, they'll do all kinds of comparisons. You can go on YouTube and you see all these shopping aids and hints and, for buying a computer. What do you need the computer for? Are you doing heavy duty gaming? No, you're probably going to want a dedicated video card. Do you need it to boot really fast? Well, you're probably going to get an SSD instead of just a conventional hard drive. What are you going to do with the computer? If you're just going to do some basic office stuff in an office, just buy something cheap. If you want something higher end, you're going to pay more for it. But if that's what you want, that's what you're going to do. But you're going to compare, you're going to shop, you're going to look. You're going to take consideration and time to make that decision. And there's other examples. People that buy houses, motorcycles, even firearms. There's a lot of shopping and looking at different calibers and how many bullets are in the magazine, or however. All that kind of stuff will even go into a firearms purchase. But men will often spend weeks or even months looking into a final decision. Why? Well, because these are important decisions and you're parting with your assets, so you want to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck and you're getting the best value. So you want to make sure that your resources are going to a good place. So let's apply this. If you're going to spend a great deal of time looking at cars, computers, firearms, houses, wouldn't you spend just as much time, if not more, looking at the relationships you have, looking at the people that you allow into your life? Why wouldn't you do that? Aren't the people in your lives even more important than the stuff in your life? If a house burns down, it can be replaced. If a car gets smashed, it can be replaced. If, all kinds of material things can be replaced. They're all replaceable. If you let crazy into your life and crazy destroys your life, that's far more damage than a smashed up car. That's far more damage than a burnt down house. All those things can be replaced. But if it empties your bank account, if it takes your retirement away, if it traps you into a situation where you're paying like most of your paychecks in child support for the next 15 to 20 years, you're toast. Your life is infinitely more difficult if you let crazy in. So why not spend at least the same amount of effort looking at your relationships as you do looking at a major purchase? Let's break it down even more. Let's give some more examples, some hypotheticals here. Would you go into a business relationship with someone who's gone through bankruptcy multiple times and is always being called by bill collectors? Would you? Well, why do guys marry them then? Why would you marry a woman that does that if you wouldn't go into business with a guy that's like that? Why? Ask yourself that. Would you put your money in a bank who's run by someone who has a history of fraud and lying and being dishonest? Of course not. Then why would you marry one? Why would you marry someone with a history of that? If they have a criminal record, if they have a history of fraud, if they have a history of lying and you've caught them in lies, or if they have a history of cheating and you've caught them cheating, why would you marry them? You wouldn't tolerate that in a business relationship, would you? So why would you tolerate it in even bigger? Businesses fail all the time and people recover from that. A failed marriage or relationship can cause even more damage. Think about these things. Think about this. Think them through before you do it. Would you buy the car that's high quality, has a good reputation and a record? Or are you going to buy the one that's rusting on the lot and dripping fluids right there because it's been run into the ground by 100 different people? Which one are you going to buy? And then if you're going to buy the better car, then why are you going to go for the poor relationship? Why would you do that to yourself? Don't let more crazy in. Now, it sounds stupid and crazy, but some of these guys that are discriminating buyers in any other aspect of their lives make horrendous relationship choices, terrible ones, and they get destroyed for it. And it's craziness that you can control because you don't have to let her into your castle. You do not have to let her into your life. If there's red flags, don't let her in. And that's the answer. The answer is to have standards. Have standards for the people that you let into your life, whether it's romantic or otherwise. And I'm concentrating more on the romantic ones because those are the ones that tend to cause more damage than anything else. Um, and again, you know, if human relationships are more important than material relationships or material things, then definitely spend more time vetting these people before you let them into your life. If you value health, be with people that value health. If you're in the gym and eating clean and taking care of you, and you're with someone who weighs 200 pounds and sits around and eats potato chips all day, you're not in a mutually beneficial relationship. You're not in a mutually supportive relationship. You're not supporting one another at all. She's certainly not supporting you. And you know what's going to happen when you guys get older together and she's like sick and dying because she didn't take care of herself. You know, is that where you want to be? If you value financial responsibility, be with people that are financially responsible. Don't be that guy that wipes up the woman that spends money faster than you can make it, because that happens. And again, I know guys that have lost retirements and pensions and the whole 9 yards. I've known women that they were staying with their guy until the pension became kind of ripe, and then she was going to divorce him and take half the pension. She was just waiting. It happens. If you value people with values, morals, then be with people with a history of having morals. If they were raised with poor values, or they have a history of cheating, or they have a history of just not being honest, then they're eventually likely going to express those things towards you. They're going to cheat on you. They're going to lie to you. They're not going to be honest with you. They're not going to be supportive of you. Best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Don't let crazy in. Life is crazy enough. Don't invite more in. In the end, you can't control everything that happens in your life. You can't control the external things, but you can control who gets close to you. You can be the discriminating buyer and not let more crazy into your life. And technically, I mean, some people would probably debate this, but you really don't have to have anyone in your life, at least romantically. It's not a necessity. However, if you want one, be picky and have someone in your life that enhances your life and you enhance theirs. Allow it to be a mutually beneficial, enhancing kind of relationship where you two raise each other up to higher levels, not one dragging the other down. You enhance hers, she enhances you enhance hers, she enhances yours. Don't be in a one-sided relationship or an unbalanced one, because that always goes bad places. Can't say this enough. Life is crazy enough. Don't invite more in. Like I do with every video, want to end with brief discussion of suicide. If any of you out there are having suicidal thoughts, or you have a friend or family member that are expressing suicidal thoughts, please call the suicide prevention number that I'm going to leave down in the description below. There's no reason to make suicide your long-term solution to a short-term problem. Most of the time, things do get better. Most problems really are temporary for the most part. And if you're able, call that number, seek out assistance. It's not necessary to end your life. Also, guys, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll be notified when I allow future videos. And otherwise, guys, have a great day. And once again, don't let more crazy in. Have a good one, guys.